What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Yammie Noob video. Today we are checking out Triumph's new Tiger 850 Sport. Now, the keen among you who love these dad bikes like the middleweight adventure category, you might say, Yammie, what the hell's going on? Didn't Triumph make a Tiger 900? Why'd they make the engine smaller? Why is it a sport? What's going on? Help me. Give me a pat on my head. All right, I will help you out here, guys. Don't worry. So, Triumph's new nomenclature for their base model Tiger is this 850 Sport. So, this is replacing the old base Tiger 900, and it's got a little bit of changes to it. Key among them being a reduction in price. So this thing is $2,000 cheaper than the old Tiger 900 base used to be. So this thing costs $11,995 on the showroom floor. And it's got a couple changes I want to walk through today and just kind of give a big ride and review of it. It's a very interesting motorcycle that I think definitely warrants your attention if you're into this kind of road-focused commuter, adventure, long distance touring, middleweight kind of bike. So let's get into it. So before we get started, guys, big shout out to Triumph North America for giving me this motorcycle for a week to try out and demo and make these videos for you. And big shout out to Ride Now Austin for facilitating me to pick up this bike. Really thankful to them. Now, some keen Yammie fans might remember that back last year in February, I actually test rode the Tiger 900 GT and Rally out in Morocco. Had about 4 or 5 days out there testing that motorcycle. That was a blast. That was in the pre-corona days, so travel and all that was a lot easier back then. But this model is a little bit different. So those of you who know about this category of motorcycles are going to first notice that it's got a 17-inch front end. So this is really not a sport touring motorcycle in my opinion. This is more of a long distance adventure bike that can do very light adventure work. As you can tell here, it's got a very limited ground clearance, maybe 6.5 inches tops, but it's got a 19-inch front end. So it's got a 190/19 up at the front here. Cast wheel, so not the best for flexibility and all that, but it's bespoke with these kind of, knobby-ish tires. So Triumph is definitely telling you that, hey, just because you get onto a forest road or a gravel road on your big long-distance adventure, it doesn't mean that you have to end there. Now, would you want to chuck this thing down some single track? Probably not. Now, let's get into why this is called an 850 instead of a 900. This motorcycle features the same 888cc T-plane crank that you'd find in the regular Tiger 900. What they've done is they've detuned it down a little bit, so it makes 10 less horsepower than that other motorcycle. And that's so that this motorcycle is a little bit more approachable and amenable for perhaps an entry-level rider or a motorcyclist who is on their second bike. This motorcycle is definitely not going to get away from you. It makes about 85 horsepower and 60 foot-pounds of torque, and that torque comes on fast and soon, as we'll show you on our first ride and impression of this machine. Another big reason why the price is so much lower on this motorcycle has to do with the specifications. So as you can see here, it's got non-adjustable Marzocchi front forks up at the front, obviously, and a preload adjustable Marzocchi at the rear. That's the only setup you can have, and one of the things that I like that they've done here is they've given you a quick turn knob to adjust the preload, so you don't have to get there with the ring clamp or whatever to actually adjust the preload. So if you've got a passenger, you got luggage, all you got to do is twist this knob. You can quickly and easily adjust this motorcycle. Another cool thing about this thing is the ergonomics package is adjustable, right? So you can actually change the seat height here. You can actually modulate that. You can change the bar angle. And so this motorcycle is definitely built to accommodate lots of different kinds of riders. Now, as I mentioned, one of the big things about this bike is its specification. This does not feature the super huge TFT display and the IMU and all the other crazy stuff that the regular Tiger 900s have. Instead, it has a smaller TFT display here, much like the Street Triple, but the software on it is basically the same as the Tiger 900. So you still get the cool changes in displays here. So as you can see, you can select the different styles, modulate this here. I've got it on my preferred style, which I think was 2. Yeah, this is the one I like. It's got this kind of neo-retro, synth-wavy rev counter here, which I quite like, and I like leaving on the tachometer setting in there on yellow. I think that looks quite nice. And so all it has is road and rain mode, nothing crazy like that. You get an adjustable windscreen too, the quick release right here, which is quite nice. So this is a pretty premium motorcycle that's at a relatively budget price for this category. To give you guys an idea, the Tiger 900 Rally is like $16,500. So this is $5,000 cheaper than the Rally and the Rally Pros and all those bikes in the Tiger lineup. And to be honest, for me, this is kind of the one to get. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later as we do the ride and review on this motorcycle, but I've got a lot to say about this thing. One final note, one thing that I really like about this bike is the foot pegs. Check this out. You got some beefy off-road focused foot pegs on this thing, and that is quite nice. Without further ado, why don't we turn this bad boy on and get to riding, shall we? That's why everybody's here. Put it in neutral here. Turns to life, as I mentioned, 888cc T-plane. That means a 132 firing order. Sounds pretty zesty. Spins up really nice. Well, let's get it out on the road, shall we? So, the ergonomics on this bike, I want to just say right off the bat, so comfortable, so amenable. This rider triangle is damn near perfect for the everyday commute and that sort of thing. And one thing that Triumph gets so right on these bikes, and basically all the bikes they make, clutch feel and shifter feel is so good. It is so good getting this thing going right here. It's so easy to maneuver. Even for a larger bike like this, I think this thing weighs about 450 pounds, ready to ride. You know, it's got this kind of bigger gas tank on it, 5 gallons if I remember correctly, 5.2. So lots of range on this thing, but it doesn't inhibit its slow speed performance. It's really easy to whip around. Go right through here in this parking lot and just bang a quick Yammie. Just really simple to ride. Really easy to ride, which is surprising in a bike that's this big and tall and perhaps intimidating to the everyday rider. Seat height is 32 inches on this motorcycle, and if you're a shorter rider, you can set the seat on the lower setting, and that'll give you about an inch less on the seat height to allow you to, you know, sit a little bit shorter on this bike and plant it a little bit better. But I'm about 5'11", and you can see here I've got my left foot down as you're supposed to be riding, and I've got a slight bend in my knees, so the ergonomics package is pretty approachable. And it's quite funny that we're in front of a Ford Explorer as I'm riding this bike, because I've often said that the adventure category is basically like the SUVs of the motorcycling world. They can do very light off-road, they're comfortable, you sit tall on them, they're a little heavy, and some of them have really big stonking engines. They're literally just SUVs for the motorcycling world, and I quite like that, you know? So as we see here, get on this bit of highway. 60 miles per hour happens quite quick. It's quite a rapid little motorcycle for what it is, honestly. It's surprisingly useful and quick. And the first thing I want to say is you really don't notice the lack of power over the regular 900. I think that's something that a lot of people were concerned about whenever this bike was announced and released. They said, oh, it's going to make 10 less horsepower and, you know, maybe 3 or 4 foot-pounds of torque less. You know, why would you want that thing? Like, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, I rode the Tiger 900. I rode it in Morocco. I spent a lot of time with it. And I don't really miss the power. It doesn't feel substantially slower to me than the regular 900. And that's because it's been tuned to make a lot of the power lower down. And this is the type of bike where you're not really going to rev it out a bunch anyways, too. It's not really necessary to, you know, goose the throttle on it. But it is quite handy to, you know, get on the wick and have some fun with it. It can definitely get up to speed pretty easily. Now, one thing I did want to test on this bike, of course, is because it is lightly off-road capable. We're going to take it down my little scrambly bit of road here and see how it feels in some sort of gravelly, rocky, mixed conditions type of stuff. So let's check this out. Get it up here. Purposefully hitting some of the heavier stuff. Feel traction control kicking in a little bit. It's kind of asking me, hey. Right, what's all this then? That's what it's asking me. Cruising here in second gear. This is probably rougher stuff than anyone who owns a 850 Sport is ever going to put it through, but I mean, check it out. It's doing it just fine. The standing position on it feels relatively good. I might want the bars a little bit higher up, but again, this is a road-focused motorcycle, not an off-road focused motorcycle, so it's pretty awesome that it's doing this relatively easily. Got a little bit of mud right there, and that ends the scrambly bit. and we go back down. A quick little off-road test for the Tiger 900. Geez, 850 Sport. I keep calling it the 900. I mean, it is a 900. It's got the 888. If you guys aren't familiar, BMW does basically the same thing for their 750 GS. It's got a bigger engine than the name would imply, so it's one of those things where I think car makers do this too, where the number on the side of the bike or the car doesn't really match this engine size. People have been doing that for a little bit now, so don't worry too much about that. We'll head down here. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, this is actually surprisingly stable for the specification this bike is on. It's really floating through these bumps really well, honestly. For a sport-oriented Tiger and one that's not really designed to do much off-road type of stuff, I'm really impressed with that, honestly. I think one of the big benefits of this motorcycle is just the fact that it comes in so reasonably priced and it doesn't give you any fluff. I like that manufacturers are starting to figure out that us motorcyclists are very different than other sort of vehicle buyers or car buyers, that kind of stuff. I like bikes that are simple. This thing has road and wet mode. That's it. It's got simple traction control. That's it. It doesn't have any of the crazy farkles and features that some of the super high-spec ADV bikes have, because guess what? You don't really need that stuff. You genuinely don't need that stuff. I think if this were my bike, I would probably just add bark busters and heated grips just to protect my hands a little bit on colder, longer distance, and that's it. I wouldn't change anything else. I am shocked at how well these non-adjustable Marzocchis work. Triumph does such a good job with their suspension tuning and the handling of their motorcycles. If you've ever ridden any Triumphs, everything from the Bonneville to the Street Triple to the Tigers, they all handle in this very sophisticated and predictable way. I really, really like that. The throttle feel is super nice on this bike. The on-off is okay. I'd rate it like a 6 out of 10. It's got a weird little on-off feel to it. But once you're up and rolling, throttle is so linear, so nice to use. All the points of contact for me on this machine, from the clutch engagement to the front brake, which feels awesome. I mean, I think this thing's over-braked. It's got a dual disc 320 mil Brembo Stylema caliper on it, calipers, and that feels really good. The clutch feel is great, like I said. The shifter feel is really, really nice too. And one thing I mentioned on the little mini off-road section was the standing capability on this bike. And beyond just wanting your motorcycle to feel really good when you're going down the road, you want to stand on it on this category of bike just so you can stretch your legs out a little bit. So if you're on some big highway stint and with 5 and change gallons of fuel on this thing, you definitely do a lot of highway on it. You can do a lot of highway on it. You'd probably want to stretch your legs a little bit. So going about 65 here, I can stand up on this bike, kind of stretch my legs a little, get up above the windscreen, come back down, and it's no problem. Speaking of the windscreen, I never ride bikes with windscreens because I'm not, I guess, 48 years old. But what a nice thing to have, you know? The wind is absolutely reduced by having this taller windscreen here. And, you know, I feel like there's no difference going down the highway, going from like 60 to 90 miles per hour, which can get you in a little bit of trouble if you're using wind as your reference point for speed. But really quite a lovely little machine this is. One of the signature features of these newer Triumphs is how silky smooth they are. These bikes are incredibly smooth. This new T-Plane triple that they've made here, there's basically no vibrations coming through the foot pegs, no vibrations through the seat. The seat literally feels like no vibrations at all. And just a really satisfying, grunty sound down low. You get this thing on the boil. Really nice, grunty kind of noise. And one thing that's cool about this bike is because it has this lower power, this thing can be fitted as an A2 motorcycle. So if you are across the pond over there in Europe or the UK, or maybe you live in Australia or something, and you're limited by restricted licenses, this thing can be made A2 compliant. by changing out the throttle tube or however else they limit it to be an A2 compliant motorcycle. I don't know exactly the technology they use to limit it, but you can limit this as an A2 bike, which is pretty sweet. And don't worry guys, we're not just gonna chill on the highway with this thing. I'm definitely gonna get it out on some twistier sections of road here just in a bit, and we will definitely let you know how the Tiger feels on the side of the tire. I really do love the riding position of this motorcycle. I think it's pretty much spot on for the everyday ride kind of bike. It's super comfortable, super amenable. So every time you jump on a motorcycle, I've often told you guys this, they make you feel like you want to do certain things. And this is one of the few bikes I've ridden that going down the road and kind of bopping around town with it, I feel like I don't want to break any sort of law or speed limit whatsoever. I want to ride in a mature and controlled fashion. This is a very mature motorcycle, a very put together motorcycle. If this motorcycle had a credit score, it would be very high. This motorcycle has a mortgage to pay. This motorcycle has 2 kids that it needs to get to soccer practice, you know? It feels like that kind of riding experience. And also, if you want the attention and admiration of men aged 35 to 50, there is no better tool for the job than the Tiger 850 Sport. Every dude I've seen in a Jeep or a truck has been just cracking their necks at this thing, which is hilarious because I sent a photo of this bike to my girlfriend. I'm like, oh, check out the bike I'm going to demo for a week. And she was like, it's a bit ugly, isn't it? And I was like, well, you know, it's an adventure bike. It's like a sport touring thing, you know. It's not a super sexy sport bike like the V2, or that guy doesn't have like the cool retro flair of my Scrambler. But normies don't understand middleweight adventure bikes, bro. They don't get it. They don't get the appeal of a laid-back kind of riding experience like this. It's funny that people look at these bikes and, you know, cross-shop them with big bagger tourers and those kind of bikes, because man, dollar for dollar, there's no way in hell you're gonna get some touring Harley that's anywhere close to being this good. This thing goes faster than a touring Harley. It'll feel more comfortable riding around. It's got a more neutral riding position, so you can chuck it down your favorite twisty road, no problem. And yeah, I just feel like middleweight adventures and adventure bikes in general make such a good case as long touring motorcycles. I feel like I could plug away as many miles as I want on this thing and not feel stressed whatsoever. I rode this thing up the highway up to the office, Yammie Noob HQ, and I just felt so completely unbothered by being on the highway. I feel like I could literally plug away like 600 miles in one day on this thing and not even feel it. The seat is super comfortable, by the way. I know that's a big thing for this category of motorcycle. I have not felt anything on the seat just yet that would make me feel like it's gonna hurt my butt after a while. I think you could definitely plug away like I said, 500 or 600 miles on this thing in one day, no problem at all. So now we're entering a bit of a twistier section of road, got some undulations here, and the first thing you notice about these bikes, these taller, you know, kind of more weighty adventure bikes, is, you know, they flick over much slower from side to side than a traditional sport bike. And that's largely due to the fact that they are so much taller and the bars are so much wider. So initial flick-in is a teensy bit slower than you'd expect, but honestly, still quite sporty in nature. I think that this thing does live up to its sport name, even though it does have these non-adjustable forks. One thing I want to make a point about on adjustable forks and all that stuff, you know, unless you're actually going to take your bike and compete with it and really wring its neck out, you know, adjustable suspension on a street bike, guys, kind of pointless. You know, I don't know. I have kind of come around on this. Yes, like a fully adjustable Olin suspension feels really nice going down the road, but most riders are not even capable of understanding what good suspension is versus bad suspension, and are going to be more than fine on a setup like this, particularly on a bike like this. This isn't a sport bike. This isn't a dedicated off-road bike. Why do you need fully adjustable suspension? I personally think that Triumph obviously upsells to their customer base for the Tiger 900 Rally and the Rally Pro because everyone wants to feel like they're a Dakar star or something like that. But in the reality, most of us just need something like this. If you're looking at this category of motorcycle, you don't need fully adjustable suspension. Come on, you're not going to go and take it down some single track. What you're going to do with it is probably just this. You're probably just going to trundle down your favorite roads, commute with it, maybe put on some luggage, And the changes that have been made to this bike have made it so that it's just much more accessible to the everyday normal rider. At a $12,000 price point, quick little brake check here, works great. At a $12,000 price point, this thing is meant to be accessible for sort of entry-level riders or maybe a second bike. It's definitely not a super premium motorcycle. This thing doesn't come close to the $20,000 price tag that you see on a lot of adventure bikes. But yeah, going back to what I was saying about how, you know, certain bikes make you feel like you want to do certain things. This bike makes me feel like I don't want to get off the side of the saddle at all. All I want to do is just plant myself right in the middle here and, you know, take the curves as they come. I don't want to get off on the side here and lean in and all that. What I want to do is just sit here, enjoy the bike, and just take these curves, you know? And it does so really well. I'm actually really shocked at how this bike feels just simply planted on the side of a tire. Very stable. The engine's characteristic is really nice too. Like I said, it makes all that power low down, so you can definitely lug this thing around. I'm in 4th gear right now, going about 35 miles per hour. Turn the wick and it really goes, you know, it really lightens up and you feel the front end kind of lift a little bit. It's nice. It's got a really good amount of torque, which is what you want out of a street-oriented bike like this. I mean, it's a very enjoyable motorcycle, and I think Triumph's done a pretty smart thing in making their Tiger lineup more accessible, because a lot of people want to buy adventure bikes, but they get sticker shock when they look at something like the Rally Pro and it costs $16,000. That's a ton of money for a motorcycle. I mean, 16 grand is like economy car money. Granted, a Tiger Rally 900 Pro is probably just as capable and versatile as an economy car, but I digress. But yeah, it's a really composed motorcycle. Really nice. Going down the twisties here. We'll get it up in a higher section here in the hills. We'll take a bit of a neighborhood road here. Go up here. I'll purposefully leave it in 2nd here just to see how it feels kind of lugging around. And this thing makes really nice torque, man. Now, one thing that I will say about this bike, and a lot of adventure bikes have this, is there's not really a great amount of feel from the tire to the rider in terms of what exactly the grip levels are. Now, I trust this bike and I trust these tires, and I'm obviously not pushing it in any meaningful way, so I'm not concerned about sliding out, but I can't really tell what the limit of my lean is on this bike. Yeah, keep it in 2nd here. It's doing really good. Again, the thing I want to say is this bike is just so mature. I think the ideal customer for this is maybe someone who got into motorcycling a little bit later in life and they've had their beginner bike. Let's say they had like a little Ninja 650 or something like that, and now they want to get something they can do big miles on, long distance, maybe travel a little bit. This bike is perfect. This bike allows you to have fun. It doesn't give you all the fluff of all the other adventure bikes. It gives you exactly what you need. And again, get some heated grips, some bark busters. This thing's set to go. You can do big miles on this thing all day. It's no problem at all. I'm trying to think of some downsides to this bike, because I feel like I've been very kind to it. Hold on, I gotta give this guy some props. Nice! I hope he didn't think I was mad at him. That is a gnarly climb to do on a bicycle. I've attempted this climb on my bicycle before, and that is a gnarly climb. So let's think of some cons for this motorcycle. Now, one thing that might just be down for me is this windscreen at higher speeds tends to give me a weird bassy kind of vibrational frequency in my helmet. That might just be due to the fact that I have a peaked helmet, or maybe it's just down to my helmet's shape or something like that. So I'm not going to blame the windscreen on that, because it is a nice windscreen and it works well. I would have liked to have seen heated grips as standard, but again, I know they were trying to hit a certain price point. And yeah, I mean, again, a $12,000 motorcycle that has Brembos and Marzocchis and all this nice stuff on it, you gotta cut costs somewhere, and it's always nice to make a little frosting on top, getting the heated grips added on from the factory, isn't it? Because Triumph will happily sell you a luggage kit and heated grips for this thing. But beyond that, I think Triumph really has kind of knocked this one out of the park. For the type of motorcycle this is, a middle-ish weight adventure bike that's meant to be a long-distance traveler, comfortable commuter kind of bike. Man, I have no complaints on this thing. It feels awesome. There's nothing immediately apparent to me that I don't like. I do think that people are a bit confused about the nomenclature on this thing. Yeah, I do think that people don't really understand why it's called an 850 if it has the same 900 Tiger engine, and why it's called a sport if it's more of like an adventure touring thing. I do think that that's going to hamper Triumph a little bit, and they maybe should have thought of another name for this thing, or to be honest, just kept the same Tiger 900 base model name and just given it this specification for the year 2021 or a 2022 model year bike, and that would have been really great. Why are you on the wrong side of the road? Awesome, dude. Yeah, that would have been a really solid move to do on Triumph's part for this motorcycle. Kept the same nomenclature as the Tiger 900. That way people don't get confused. Because although they are kind of following BMW's footsteps in making a bike that, you know, it's called the 750 GS, but it has a bigger engine or blah, 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 it's kind of confusing to people. And I had people in my Discord server asking me about it, and I was, you know, I had to kind of explain to them that it's like, hey, you know, this is not the same motorcycle that it used to be, or slightly detuned. It's just like, it's weird to have to like explain your motorcycle to people. That is a bit bizarre. I'm gonna go back up the hill over there, and you kind of just keep it in second. It's got plenty of torque to just feather the clutch around in second gear, which is quite nice. I don't think I've ever made it up this way on this hill. Alright guys, well I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Triumph Tiger 850 Sport. This is a great sort of entry-level adventure-ish bike that Triumph is offering. It feels really nice to ride. I have literally no complaints. New motorcycles like this nowadays are all pretty damn good. You really wouldn't have a bad time with this machine if you were to choose it. Now, I think this bike makes a lot of sense, like I said, for someone who is older, maybe has a fatter checkbook to afford a motorcycle in the 5-digit price point, and is wanting something that can do long distance commuting, touring. It really is a pretty versatile motorcycle. I think the only things it can't really do are very aggressive, spirited track day kind of stuff and canyon riding, but if you're looking at a bike like this, chances are you're not really interested in doing that sort of thing with it. It can definitely hustle you down a twisty road with aplomb. It does so pretty nicely. It's really not that bad. Is definitely gravel and forest road capable. The stuff I did with it today is probably more aggressive than anyone's ever going to do with their 850 Sport. It's got a big gas tank, which is great. Really big range on it. Lovely features. Feels really good to ride. The important stuff, the fundamentals, are really good on this motorcycle. The throttle feel, the brakes, the clutch, the shifter, rear brake. Everything feels really, really nice. All the points of contact on your bike are really, really nice. The other thing this bike has, too, that I didn't mention is this really sweet daytime running LED. So it's got this nice little LED here, full LED turn signals as well, which look really, really great. See it on there. It's a nice touch. None of that incandescent stuff on this machine. So we're going to be doing a full production video on this motorcycle coming up later in the week. We're probably going to take it and probably put a spin on it of, you know, is the ADV category beginner friendly or that kind of stuff. There's definitely more to talk about this bike. But that's going to wrap us up for today. Thanks again for Triumph for lending me this motorcycle for the week and trying it out. I really enjoyed my time with it. I'm going to keep riding and having some fun with it. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
Bummer for you, my little squid. This video is actually over, but lucky for you, there's plenty of other Yammie videos you can check out right over here. What's gonna happen in them? I don't know. I haven't seen them, but you can watch them right now.